Hello and welcome to Dice and Demons. I'm Emma and today I'm going to do a review of a modular art box that was sent to me by a company called Krydrufi. So Krydrufi reached out to me and asked me if they could send me their new art box so that I could test it out and perhaps do a review of it. And of course I said yes, because I always like testing out new stuff for the hobby. I'm always on the lookout for something that can make this awesome hobby a little bit more fun or interesting or just a little bit more approachable and easy to manage. So yeah, I said yes, and they sent it to me and I got it last week, and so I've been testing it out for the past week. Full disclosure, they sent me this box for free, but they haven't paid me to do the review or asked me to say, you know, give it a really positive review or anything. So what I'm going to say here in this video are my own thoughts and opinions, but just so you know that I was actually sent this for free. So what you get if you order one of these is you get this box, where this packaging where it says all-in-one modular art box, and well, what it says on the package is exactly what you are gonna receive. So let's take a look at what's inside this and how you can use it in your miniature painting hobby. So if you buy this this box, this is what it looks like when you get it out of the packaging, except that the one that you actually get out of the package is really clean, whereas mine is slightly tinted with paint, because of course I've been testing it out. Otherwise I think it would be a little bit difficult to do a review. So what this is, as it says, it's a modular art box, which means that it has different modules that you can use on and off as you see fit. The thing that takes up most of the room here is this blue box, which is just actually a sort of storage space. You can see here it's just clear blue plastic here, and the divider here it's fixed in place, so you can't remove that. But you can use this either for storage, of course, or for if you want to have water for cleaning your brushes or whatever. Except that that's what these small containers are for. So these containers are basically just plastic boxes, again, that fit in with the within the blue box. And yeah, this is one I've been using for painting, as you can see. And it has a nice size. It's like a regular paint cup. So you can have the same amount of water in this one as in any other paint pot. What I really like about this one is that it comes with this silicone mat which has a bit of texture on it, as you can see, and that's really nice for cleaning off your brushes, because if you just have them against like a piece of flat plastic like this, it can be difficult to really rinse off the pigments from the brush. So I like when you have something with a texture on it that allows you to rinse clean your brushes a little bit more effectively. So you have that, and that goes in the bottom of the pot. And then you have two plastic / silicone things that you can place on the sides, and these are quite handy. So you place them off to the side here, and you can of course turn them any which way you want. And they are for storing your brushes. So if you want to have brushes that are kept inside the water, you have this. I have a really battered old paintbrush here. So you can just place it inside here like this. Yeah, and it holds it pretty well, I think. And the other one, which is on the outside here, it has like this little shelf to catch some water or whatever, because again, you can store the brush like this. You don't want it stored inside with the water, then you can store it like this. And the well, since this is a battered old brush, this doesn't make too much sense. But if you have some really nice brushes and you want to store them after you have been painting with them, it's actually really good for the brushes to store them upside down like this, because it means if there are a little bit of pigment still left in the brush alongside the water, it can then flow down instead of staying inside the the brush itself. Or if you store it like this, all the pigment will flow down from here and into the ferrule, which means that the brush is more likely to split. So it's really nice that you can effectively just put your brush like this, and it'll drip off both water and traces of pigment. So I think that's pretty nice. I think these silicone inserts, they hold, it seems like they hold onto the brush pretty well. I'm not sure that I would trust this enough to store a really nice expensive brush like this. while also on the move. So let's say I'm going to the club to paint with my friends, and I want to bring my brushes, and I put all of this in my car. I'm not sure. I don't think it will fall, but yeah, I haven't. What I'm saying is I haven't tested how well these will hold onto the brush if you are driving in a car or something like that. But if for, you know, sitting stationed in an area at your painting desk or at the club or whatever, this will work really well. Okay, so for the next layer, you have these plastic clips on the side that will let you open up the next layer for the module. So just open it like this, and the top comes off. And then you have here a, it's basically just a lid, but you'll notice it has these small metallic clips on either side. And it says in the packaging when you buy this product, be really careful with these because they are a little bit fragile. And I wasn't, there are two identical components here, and I immediately snapped the metal clips on the first one because I wasn't careful. So be careful with these. They're not meant to be sort of pulled all the way up. They're just meant to carefully slide paper underneath. So just be a little bit careful about that. So this will work both as a lid for the wet palette that's underneath, and it's also both a storage space for the paper for the wet palette and also a dry palette on its own. So when you buy this, you also get some paper for the wet palette, and it comes in a nice envelope like this. Miniature special mixing paper, and it feels like any other sort of paper that I have tried for a wet palette, like something you would put in a lunchbox or something. I think it's not quite that, but it feels more or less like that. So what you do, you can just slide the you just carefully. It's really difficult to do while you are trying to show it off. So you just carefully slide the paper there, and now you have a nice dry palette. You can also use this just for storing, as I said, paper for the wet palette underneath. Then it's also a lid, and you just lift it off, and then you have, yeah, again with a little bit of pink paint because I've been using this, and you have a nice wet palette underneath, and it comes with this sort of foam sponge. It's pretty thick, I think 5 millimeters, and so it seems to hold moisture really well, and it's not quite like the regular foam that I have tried in other wet palettes. It feels a little bit more dense somehow. I don't know if that makes a huge difference to the way you use a wet palette. I don't think so. I've been using this for the past week, and it works really well. To be fair, it's been unseasonably warm here, so everything has been drying up quicker. So it was perhaps not the perfect time of year to test this out, whether or not it would hold moisture longer than my ordinary wet palette. So I'm not quite sure about that, but it seems to work just as well, at least, if not better. So you can see it's not very big, but there are two of these in the module. So if you need more space, you can just have these two. And yeah, and then you just, of course, like any other wet palette, you just apply the paper on top of, and then it works great. And the lid seems to close really tight, like it has like this groove that means that it closes really tight. And I have been testing it really carefully to make sure that it will not mess up the paint on the wet palette, and it doesn't touch the paper or the paint at all. So it doesn't mess it up or anything, but it just has a really nice airtight closing mechanism. So that means that, of course, it just it keeps the paint dry or wet a little bit longer. So yeah, I actually like that it's not that big, because I have limited painting space in my hobby room, and the sort of painting area on my desk is not that big, so it's really nice for me that I have something that doesn't take up like a third of the painting space, but it's actually a little bit smaller. I know a lot of people are really happy with like giant wet palettes, and that's, you know, fine, but if you have limited space available, I think it's really nice that you also have an option of just having a small one. Then, as you can see here, as I told you, I snapped the metal clips off the second layer here, which was stupid of me. But they are a little bit fragile. I wrote the people who sent it to me, and they have promised to send replacements. So you have another wet palette here, and if you don't want to use this as a wet palette, if you're on the go, but you have a use for storing some small tools or something like that, you can do that here as well, which I think is a nice idea. I think something that would be really cool, this is the one where I broke the metallic clips off. Yeah. I forgot to read the instructions. I think reading instructions is really challenging my ADHD, so I usually just don't and assume everything's going to be fine, and that's not always the case. I should work on that. So as I said, you can use this as a dry palette, you can use it for storing the paper for the wet palette, but I would actually think that, I mean, there are 2 of these that comes in the modular art box. So if you could apply some texture to one of these, then you have a really nice texture palette for dry brushing. Because if you're dry brushing and you just, you know, use a piece of paper or something, it sucks the moisture out of the paint, and that tends to give you the very dusty look with dry brushing. Whereas if you're using a texture palette to just get the excess paint off the brush but not removing the moisture, that tends to work a little bit better. So if you could turn this into a textured palette and you don't need 2 dry palettes, that might be actually an idea. Or it could be really cool if the company who makes this made it available that you could have a texture palette. So that was just an idea. It's not something that really comes in the box, but something that I thought about doing because I don't need 2 dry palettes. I usually just use the wet palette, so this is sort of an extra for me, and I think I'm going to try to apply some texture to it. So all in all, I think this is a really neat product, especially if you are painting on the go. I think next time I'm going to be painting at the local game club or the game store, I'm going to be bringing this, but I'll only bring one of the paint pots because then I have the space next to it where I can put some paints in. And so I can have everything in one go except for my brushes that I will probably carry, as I said, in a different way. I think you could place them here and they would be all right, but I would just be really, a little bit nervous about just having them stick out of here and bringing them along, and perhaps you're going to be tilting them and destroying the bristles. I wouldn't really want that. So this with some paints in here, a model perhaps also wrapped up nicely in a piece of paper towel or something, and then just my brushes, and I'm basically ready to go. Another thing that I think this would be really useful for is if you are someone who doesn't have a dedicated gaming space or a painting space, because I know for myself, I'm really lucky that I have my hobby room, but not everyone, of course, is able to have a dedicated hobby room, and I didn't have that for a long time either. And so before I had that, I had to figure out a way of making painting as accessible as possible, because if you need to get out your paints and your models and your brushes and your paint pots and all sorts of things from different places, and it's a little bit messy and it takes a long time to get them out and a long time to clean up, then it's just less likely that you're going to be painting. Let's say you have half an hour and you're going to be spending at least 10 minutes setting up and cleaning up afterwards. It's a little bit less likely. So having something like this where you just have it all in one go, more or less, I think that makes it a little bit easier if you have very limited hobby space and you want to be able to paint even if you don't have like an entire day to set aside for the project. So I think it's really useful for that as well. I think it feels like the plastic is nice and sturdy, and the plastic clips works well, and they don't seem like they don't seem like fragile or anything. The only thing where I thought that was a tiny bit fragile was, as I said, the metal clips, and that was also me not reading the instructions, which I of course should have done. So yeah, I think this is a neat product. I think it can be really useful, especially if you're painting on the go. I think there are all sorts of different modules that you can pick and choose from on their website. This is just the product they sent to me. So if you want to sort of customize your own modular art box, you can definitely do so. So if you think this looks interesting, I would I would advise you to take a look at their website, and it seems like they have really excellent customer service. I have been writing with a couple of questions and stuff, and they have gone back to me really quickly, and so it seems like they have nice customer service, definitely. So is this something that is going to revolutionize your painting? No, I don't think it will, but is it something that might make it more accessible and a little bit more fun, and perhaps even a little bit more doable on the go and with limited hobby space or a lack of a dedicated hobby area? Yeah, absolutely. I think what I'll be using the most is the wet palette, because I like that it's small, and I'll be using the paint pot and of this system here where you can store your brushes upside down and know that they are nice and secure and won't go anywhere and won't destroy the bristles. So I think this is really useful, and it's definitely got a place at my hobby desk. So I hope you liked this review. If there are any other products you would like me to take a look at, please write that in the comment section and I will take that under consideration. I'm particularly interested in products that both make it more fun, of course, to be a part of this hobby, but also products that make it more accessible for people who might struggle with different things. For me, for instance, I'm autistic and I have ADHD, so I have a lot of trouble with executive dysfunction, which means that I have a hard time getting started with things, especially if there are too many steps to it, like getting out my paints, getting out the brushes, figuring out where I left the mini, and stuff like that. And that can also make it difficult for me to get to a painting day at the local game club, because I just can't work out in my mind where to get started and what I want to bring. So something like this product, where you have more or less everything in one place, that just makes it that bit more easy for me to get out of the house and enjoy my hobby with my friends, which I really appreciate. So if you have any products you'd like me to take a look at, please write that, and I'll definitely take a look at it. So thank you so much for watching, guys, and I'll see you next time. Bye.